1986 Daytona 500. You're with a new team. You've got sponsorship, and you finished 7th.
Yep, Captain Cody's were their sponsor.
In the Daytona 500. How big a deal was that to you personally? Was that your welcome to NASCAR moment when you felt like you'd made it?
Yeah, that was one of them. I hadn't really thought I'd made it up until then. I was a young guy. I didn't really know. I knew I could drive a race car, but I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how. I mean, these guys were running 200+ mile an hour around here, and I didn't want to cause, which we didn't really have them back then, but a big wreck. But I'll never forget, I was just trying, we start the race, I know we're fast, and I'm just riding, trying to take what is given me. I'm not trying to take anything, whatever is given to me. I'll never forget, for the latter part of the race, that's when I really figure out how to draft good, because I'm right on Darrell Waltrip's bumper, and Darrell's trusting me. Back then, if you're a young kid, nobody wanted to draft with you. They'd wave you off, get away from you. But Darrell was trying to run good. When me and Darrell got hooked up, we started running pretty good. And back then we were just in a line, or just me and him, or whoever was running with. And I stayed on his. I said, if I stay on his rear bumper till this race is over with, I will run good, because it's Darrell Waltrip. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And I stayed on that bumper, and so then when the race was over, next time I seen Darrell, this is Darrell Waltrip. He says, man, good job. Appreciate you doing what you did, or not doing doing something stupid. We had a good run. And so that was one of the steps that I had to take to get to where I wanted to be at.
Tell me about working with Tony Glover.
That was something I never had before with a crew chief. When Tony was just, he's old school. He was old school. He was, confident in what he did. He just, but we were learning also on the speedways and cups, running cup. But I'm going to tell you what, me and Tony, it didn't take Tony very long to figure me out, and it didn't take me very long to figure Tony out. I'm a guy that he knew what I wanted. I don't know how he did it, but he knew what I wanted. I didn't have to say nothing. I'd go out and make a lap, come in, I didn't have to say, Tony, this thing's loose, I can't even drive it. Or Tony, this thing's pushing, or next year. He we don't get me wrong, we would chat about it. But as the years went on, I didn't have to really tell him nothing. I come in and run decent. I got it. I know what you need. And it was just that personality that we worked together. We laughed together. We cried together. It was he was something that that's probably one of the hardest things I ever did when I left that team. Not only that team, but Tony. God, we just worked so good together, and that was one of my life learning experiences, making decisions on what my future were going to hold. But we can get into that later. But that me and Tony were friends, and he was a crew chief. And we didn't, back then he didn't have any. Larry didn't. We didn't have any help. We had a handful. Might have been 4 or 5. And I remember going to Charlotte. We didn't have a motor program, a full-time motor program, and we were, I think, renting motors or whatever. We blew up like 3 or 4 motors in 2 or 3 days and wrecked 2 or 3 cars. Blowed up going down the front straightaway, wrecked the cars. We didn't have no more cars. Staying up all night trying to get back for the World 600 or whatever it was. And we just worked together. We worked hard. All of us. I was there. It didn't matter. Slinging Bondo, putting motors in, and nobody even thought nothing about it. But we do it 24/7. And Larry, everybody. And it was just a family. That's what we did. And just trying to run good.
Now, I understand that this is a big, open-ended question. But what is your best Tony Glover story about who he was as a person? I understand that he does a mean Tommy Ellis impersonation.
Oh yeah.
He did. I understand that he's not real big on snakes.
Oh no. no, he's not big on snakes.
So tell me who was the Tony Glover that you knew in the hauler?
We always were pulling pranks on everybody. As hard as we had to work back then, we had to have some kind of enjoyment, But he was real easy to scare. You come up behind him, and he would always be standing down on pit road or in a corner clocking everybody. When we were kind of down a little bit, clocking everybody, and I'd always wait. I'd slip up behind him, and he'd be sitting there clocking, them cars would be going by, and I'd wait for one just about to get right in front of him, and he'd turn his head and look at the other one, scream and grab him. He'd go ballistic, And snakes, rubber snake, oh my gosh, it was terrible. He was up under a car one day, we was somewhere, and I had, that weekend, bought a rubber snake, and he was up under that thing, might have been changing the gear or whatever, and I just, hey, Tone, and throw that rubber snake in there. Time he got out from under that thing, he was beat all up, blood. And I get thinking back about it. I don't think my car handled that good. I think he said, "I'll get you." But I remember one time we were at Rockingham, and going to the hotel back toward Rockingham, there was a filling station there. And when I came out that morning, I reckon there was a car. They might have had a wrecker service there, but there was a car there sitting right out in front of the filling station, and probably one of the worst wrecks I'd ever seen. It was a street car, and they'd been in a wreck. That thing was almost just completely just a wad of metal. There was no way anybody survived that. And so I kind of had planned. And I was driving the old van, and another guy there, I said, y'all see that car, when y'all come in this morning? And they didn't. I said, man, there was a wreck down there, so-and-so, and it's terrible. And I slowed down, and, I had it gory. I seen the wreck. People were, hanging out of the cars, and Tony said, "Good gracious, oh my! I said, look at that thing." And everybody gets about turning their head, that almost to go back around, and I just slam on brakes and scream, and because like I've hit. Oh my gosh, Tony just, everybody goes nuts. That's just how we all did it. And I got it put back on me too. It was very in a hard situation, because that was a lot of hard work back then.
Yeah.
And we got through it by enjoying each other. I mean, there's a lot of stories I can say, and there's a lot of stories I can't tell you.
Well, it's just between us and a few thousand listeners.
Yeah, but it was really good. It was good.
Now you said that it got put back on you. What's the best one that got put back on you?
I'm not a big fan of snakes either. But crawl down might have been at the shop, might not have been at the racetrack. Crawl down the race car, maybe put some belts in there or something, and they'd wrap the big old rubber snake around the roll bar. And so I'm sitting there, I'm all in there, and so getting everything set, steering wheel, and of course I'm going to look up in the mirror and see how I look out the back, look up there, and there's that snake sitting there. Same thing happened to me. But it was great,
As time went on, there seemed to be a certain sense of friendship that developed amongst a small group of the drivers. I think there was you and Michael Waltrip and Kyle Petty.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe Brett Bodine was in there.
All right.
Harry Gant was in there a little bit. Is there anybody else that I'm missing? Was there a particular group that you remember hanging?
Phil Parsons.
Phil Parsons.
Yeah,
okay.
He was in there.
How did that develop? How did that happen?
I reckon other than Harry, they had a deal. Might have been on in the Grand National scene back then. They did a picture, and it was me, Michael, Phil, Mark Martin. I can't remember. They called us the Young Guns.
Yeah.
And we were the younger guys, kind of, and we were just, and let me tell you something. When you got Cale, Buddy Baker, Richard Petty, A.J. Foyt, the older guys that will get your butt in a heartbeat, for not driving right, for not acting right. We kind of hung together because we didn't, we had to kind of team up ourselves. It wasn't teaming against the old guys, but, it was just that, I reckon, that gap. But we become good, all of us become good friends. And, we hung out at the racetrack or away from the racetrack. When we weren't practicing, we were in the haulers. It was just, we had camaraderie. It was just talking about how we were doing, trying to help each other. And it's just totally, I would say, different than anything that goes on now. We weren't hiding stuff. If one of us wasn't running good, we wanted to see somebody run good. It was just in that group. Now, if you wasn't in that group, we wanted to see you run bad. But it's just weekends or when we were off, which wasn't very often. I never played golf, but we also tried to take up trying to play golf because, of course, on go to some of these racetracks, you know, the towns or the sponsors wanted you to play golf, and we tried to take that sport up, and we got where we could, you know, play pretty good because we kind of goes back to the racing part. There's two kind of racers. There's cheaters and losers. and in golf, we kind of figured out how to play that game. And to be, you know, just be respectable, you know. But we just, I mean, it was good. It was. I mean, if it doesn't go on now, which I don't know, I'm sure that it does. People are missing a lot of fun, but people are different. You know, it was just a different time, and we had to look at things and work to get where we're at a different way. And we would do whatever it took, but we were all good friends.
Yeah.
You know, don't get me wrong. We've been a many time. I cussed one, and wouldn't talk for 2 or 3 days. But it always come back around, you know. Hey, I'm sorry. You know.
Well, I was going to ask. There's friendship off the racetrack, but when you get on the racetrack, what did it mean for the competition?
It was pretty much all out on.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you might let you know if your buddy gets stuck out there, and if it's early in the race and your buddy gets, I'll go back to a speedway, gets stuck out of the draft, and you know, like back then we didn't have, you know, we were just getting into restrictor plates, so we were still mowing straight lines.
Yeah.
And you know, you let your buddy in, you know, and that, you know, because you knew that would come back around, you know, to help you. But when it come down to the end of the deal, it was on, and everybody knew that. I mean, we were all hungry, hadn't won no races. You know, we'd all run good, but we wanted to, you know, win races and make our mark. We hadn't done that. And but we all just helped each other as much as we could, because the rest of the older guys, they would not, they didn't. They'd slam a door on you or whatever. So it was good.
Sitting here in your office, I think it's interesting, your decor. All kinds of racing pictures, but one in particular kind of jumps out at me. It's the photo of Richard Schreck from the '88 Daytona 500.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I realized that you were so close to it until I saw that
That
photo.
picture is a million words right there. Yeah, it was. It felt a lot closer than that when it happened, but you know, that was a heck of a wreck. You know, and that's one Richard went through, and he got hurt. You know, not real bad, but broke his ankles, I think, or whatever.
Yeah.
And just tumbling down the racetrack. And then I think Brett hit him. I think it was Brett. I'm not sure after he stopped.
Yeah.
And you know, it was that was one of those days that we were, you know, all. That was back before much restrictor plates, and we were running. You know, I mean, it was fast, and I think it was Phil Bartdolf got loose and touched Richard, and then it took off. And that's one of the deals right there. It could have got really bad because he went down through the fence. Thank gosh for the cables holding everything out, because we could have had a bad scene there. But we all got out of it pretty good. But it was and somebody took that shot, and I've seen it all around, and I was very fortunate. I knew right then I loved that picture, so I got everybody to sign it, and I've had it ever since.
Now, you did sit on the pole that spring at Bristol in Morgan-McClure's backyard.
Right.
What was the team's reaction to doing so well so close to home?
Oh, that was a big deal. And I've always had a good deal with Bristol for some reason. When I drove for Charlie Henderson, you know, in the Busch car, you know, we won Bristol. But sitting on the pole there meant a lot, because Morgan-McClure, that's their hometown. I mean, everybody, you know, they're in Abington, right down the road. That's when the tire wars were going on between Hoosier and Goodyear, and it was great to sit on the pole. It was a team booster, but I don't think we ran that good in the race. But sitting on the pole was a good deal, you know, and it makes you feel good, you know. And that was one of them deals. I love Bristol Racetrack. I love running the race there, but I always go back to what Kyle used to say. Probably what they need to do is fill it up with water and put fish in it, because it is hard on a driver.
Yeah. Hard.
Especially back in the day. We didn't have a lot of driver comfort deals back in the day. And but you know, it separated the men from the boys. But I did love it and do love it. Got the opportunity to go back, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago when they had the Legends race, you know, the old guys, and won it. Yeah. And then that's when Pearson got hurt, and I think they quit having them. But so they had that 2 times. Sterling won 1 time, and I won the next time. So that was good. That was good.
So 1988 Daytona Firecracker 400. You and Bill Elliott.
Yeah.
Going in turn 3, you're right on his bumper, and Dale looks like he's going to go low, and you kind of block him a little bit, or you go low too. What do you remember about that last lap or 2 or 3?
Oh, I remember. I remember that day we had the car to beat. We were real fast. We, just had a great race car. Tony and everybody gave me a good race car. I remember, I don't know, halfway through the race, maybe a little before the race, Bill Elliott was, and he'll tell you, was running as worst that he's ever run at Daytona. He was bad. But I was lapping him, and it set up where he was, I think we're on the back straightaway, and I just kind of pulled in behind him, and we kind of, I forget why, but I said, I'm just going to sit here, run through the corner with him, or run a lap behind him, then I'm going to pass him and go on. And when I pulled in behind him, I seen my RPMs on my car just jump up, and his did too. And the next thing I know, we are the fastest thing there. The race kept going on. I'd get with somebody else, wouldn't do it. Would not do it. It didn't matter if I was in front or was he was in back. So we pretty much figured out, me and Bill, could, dominate this thing or be there at the end if we keep our nose clean. And what I should have done right then was probably went ahead and lapped him. And you always think back.
Yeah.
But anyway, but we ran the whole day back in, me leading, him leading. And I can remember it got down to the end of the race. He was leading. And it wasn't no problem for me to pull out and go by him. Dale, I don't know if he was running third. I think he was running fourth. I'm not sure. And Dale was no good either. Had not been good all day. And he didn't have nothing to lose. So we're coming down the back straightaway, and he jumps out early. If he'd just stayed in line, well, I had to make a decision, to go higher. But here he comes. He had a run, so I had to go down. And then, the rest of it's history. He beat me by 18 inches or whatever Bill did. But if I had it do over again, I'd probably wrecked him going down the front straightaway. We touched a few times, just, and him pushing on me, and he beat me. But had it do over again, I'd wreck his ass, yep. And he knows it, too, because I told him.
Did you know who had won?
No.
When you crossed the stripe?
I thought I might have won.
Yeah.
But, when you got a dominant car, I could pass anytime I wanted to.
Yeah.
And, but they had to, it took a little bit. I remember going down the back straightaway, who won? And then they said, he'd won. Or I think we might have got back to pit road before we knew. Because back then, I think it took a little bit for him to, to get the picture up and everything. Yeah. And, but, hey, it was good, though. You always wish you had that back. There's a bunch of them I wish I had, but that was, you get beat by Bill Elliott. We went to Talladega the next race. We figured it out. Okay, we took the cars back home, cleaned them up, took the motors out, rebuilt them, right back to work, put them back together. They sit there till Talladega come up. We went to Talladega and said, we think to clean these boys' clock. Got to Talladega, set it up, went out, went to running. Wouldn't do it. Would not do it. And we never could understand that.
Wow.
So, but it was, and that's when Bill was really running fast and running good. So you get outrun by Bill Elliott. Heck, he's a great guy, and me and him were friends too. And it's just, it was good. It was a good day at the racetrack. Loved to have won it, but I didn't run second.
I was going to ask, going back home that night, or whenever you went back home, were you disappointed or were you content?
I was probably disappointed. I left the racetrack and went straight to I went and ran a race that night in Florida, and that took it off my mind a little bit. It was South Florida. That's when we were having those all-star races. Remember, the Cup drivers would go run races, and I love that. That's how, and that's another how we all us younger guys become friends too, because we did a lot of those. But that night, like I said, I should have just I could have, if I'd had two things to do different, would lap him early on, but still run together, and he'd have been hard to keep lap down, but or wrecked him, and I wasn't gonna wreck him, we just. Which way Dale jumped to the inside. I went to the inside to block him because I knew I had enough momentum to go by him. If Dale went to the outside, I went to the outside, and I probably had more momentum, just like Bill did, to go by him. So it's, heck, what the heck, you just do what you can. When you run that fast in Daytona, you don't have a lot of time to think about what you're going to do, react on them things. You just got to react and hope it works out.
1989, you did win a couple of Busch Series races with Charlie Henderson's team, I believe at Bristol and Dover.
Yeah.
How big of a confidence boost did that give you?
Oh, that was big. I'd always had run good at a lot of tracks, but just couldn't seal the deal. Had a lot of mechanical problems and wrecked a lot, learning. But winning that Bristol race there for Charlie and Chris Carrier. Chris Carrier is crew chief on Charlie's car for me then, and that's Chris Carrier and Tony Glover, the best two crew chiefs that's ever walked down the pike, that I work with.
Yeah.
And I mean, I work with some good ones, but we won that race for Charlie there. I mean, it was on a Monday. It got rained out, cold, and me and Mark Martin, we were up after. Matter of fact, had a caution there at the end, maybe 10 to go, had a restart, spun the tires. Mark got by me, 10 laps to go. It's not easy to drive back by Mark Martin,
Yeah.
But I drove back by him and won the race, and that was a big confidence builder for me. And that season there, we should have won 3 or 4 more races, but we had mechanical problems, failures and stuff. But it was really good that season, and just a great team there, and they're still there. They're probably one of the oldest teams out there. They got a truck now they're running, and Chris is there.
Yeah.
Chris ran around. He did some cup, worked for Penske, and he worked for Larry for a long time. But he's back, doing that and enjoying every minute. Me and him talk a lot,
Yeah.
and he's enjoying every minute of it.
We were talking before we started recording, but you did mention an accident that you got into at Richmond with Butch Miller, and it was on the cover of Scene. A lot of fire, man.
Yeah.
A lot of fire, and you wound up getting hurt pretty seriously. What happened? What do you remember?
Run out of brakes. I remember that we were all up in the race. We were running good, and me and Darrell Walter ran out of brakes. So back then, we run for points. You just didn't quit. Might have been stupid for not quitting because we didn't have no brakes. Now, grant me, we were coming in trying to fix it, but we just running in the back, trying to stay on the lead lap. And Darrell and me had good enough cars where we could just, if nothing bad happened, we could stay on the lead lap or close to it. And so he knew I didn't have any brakes. I knew he didn't have any brakes. And so we were just running by ourselves, stay away from everybody. Well, might have been something might have happened to Butch or whatever, but it was a night race, and we run down the back straightaway, and I'm pretty close to Darrell, and Butch had spun out going into 3 and 4, and I don't think the spotters had hollered yet, but it was down back when you really couldn't see good. When you went down the corner, they were over by them tires coming up off of there, and Darrell seen him first, and I'm right behind Darrell, basically looking through Darrell's windshield, driving my, and Darrell just takes a dead right. There sat Butch. Stopped right there in the middle of the racetrack. And no brake. I didn't even have time to even turn, and I hit him hard. Well, it busted his fuel cell, big explosion. And, of course, I was on the brakes that I didn't have, so I'm pushing down on them.
Yeah.
So we hit so hard it broke both my feet.
Both of them.
Both of them. And so that's when I was telling you earlier, that's when me and Harry were flying together. And I think Harry had a broke foot too, but I went to the hospital, and thank God Butch was okay. The fire didn't burn me. Nobody got burnt, but it was a big fire. Because like I say, it was on the cover. It was impressive. And broke both my feet, and, that's – but I'll tell you what happened. The next week we had to run at Dover. But Harry had a broke foot, and or something was broke on him, but
now you are now don't gloss over Harry yanking your chain a little bit.
Yeah, well, I was But anyway, I go to the hospital. You know, I'm there for an hour or two. I'm flying. Me and Harry. I fly with Harry on his plane, so he's waiting on me. He's about as patient as he ain't. So I stay at the hospital for 2 or 3 hours and get my X-rays, and they put casts on my feet. I mean, it's bad. Give me a pair of crutches, and I don't know how to use crutches. So finally, they bring me to the airport, and there's Harry standing at the plane shaking his head. You know, come on, we gotta go. And I'm hurting. You know, they
No sympathy.
Yeah, no sympathy. You know, oh my gosh, you got a hurt little foot. You know, so there he was. He had a cast on foot. So when I'm walking by him, I just stick the crutch right on his foot. You know, brr, you know, and he's. But anyway, I get home, and here I'm sitting here. We got to run Dover the next week, and you know, that's back when you just didn't miss races.
Yeah.
You know, you did not miss a race. And so I'm sitting here thinking, what am I going to do? I can't drive Dover with 2 casts on my feet. And so I get this bright idea. You know, I mean, I was talking with Larry. I think Larry had already told me that he got Tommy Ellis was going to drive the car. And I said, well, get Tommy, but don't get all excited right yet. I go right down from where I live there I live right there in right off of Lake Norman there on what's the name of that town?
Huntersville.
Huntersville, yeah, Huntersville.
Yeah.
I lived there in Huntersville, and back then there was the only thing that was there wasn't much there back then, but there was a Rose's store. So the next morning I get up, get my crutches, and here I go. I had an idea, so I go down to the Rose's store and I go into the shoe section, and there they were. You remember those red ball jet tennis shoes?
Yeah.
You know, they had the big thick soles. They use them for basketball.
Yeah.
And you lace them up. You know, they're high tops. So I buy me a pair of them, and I throw them in my car, and I go down to Dick Hutcherson's shop, and I get them shoes out and get over on the bandsaw, and I saw the soles off of them. And I go over and I take that sole and put it on a piece of 1/4-inch aluminum, trace it out. I cut them out. I put my shoes all back together and pop rivet them and tape them and glue them and put them on. And hey, still got cast on my feet. I said, no, excuse me. I said, well, I got to try these on. So I get the Ziz wheel, cut the cast off my feet, put
You
them.
cut the cast off
Yep.
your own.
Put tennis shoes on, lace them up tight enough where I could stand it without crying, and stand up. And they keep that aluminum. I can't, you know, my foot's flat. I look like a elf walking around. I called Larry up. I said, hey, bud, I'm good to go. I said, you bring Tommy? No, we're going to bring. I said, no, I'm going to drive this race car. We got it. So I go to Dover. Got Tommy Ellis there. I'm good. I get out. I'm practicing. We're bad fast. So race starts. I run probably halfway through the race. And this is one time I did cuss Tony. He run me out of gas. I was leading the race. Dale Earnhardt was running second. Run me out of gas. Come in. Time we got it fired, got it out. We were 2 or 3. Dover, it don't take long to get down there.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, you can put Tommy in here now. And I get out of the car, and I am not kidding you. I'm all pumped, adrenaline, you know, my feet ain't, but anyway, Larry got laughing at me. I looked down, and my right foot, I looked like an elf shoe. That aluminum had bent where I was pushing on that throttle so hard. And, I mean, just like that. That 1/4-inch aluminum, I bent it straight up. And, but run the race. I mean, we wound up, you know, with Tommy finishing it. We finished in the, you know, probably top 10, but that was from the wreck at Richmond. I mean, it was tough.
Do you still have those shoes?
No.
Those belong in the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I know it. But, you know, back then you just thought of what you had to do.
How did it not broil your feet? The metal on the metal of the floor.
Oh, I probably have. Well, back then we used to put wood down there. Back when we had plywood, we put in the floorboard, and the heat wouldn't transfer through the metal. This is before we had all this fancy stuff, you know. So, but I'm sure I mean, it didn't boil my feet. But I didn't have racing shoes on. But heck, back then, I mean, it's like a lot of people didn't wear racing shoes. You know, they wore you know, just regular street shoes. You know, racing. So even in our era, you know, we had all the good stuff, but a lot of people still didn't use it.
So this was a pair of basically Chuck Taylors that you got it at the store. Mm-hmm. You cut the bottoms off of them.
Yeah, it had big old thick soles, rubber soles.
Okay, and then you
took the rubber soles off. I mean, cut them off, So there's a rubber sole. Put it off. Now trace it out on a 1/4 inch aluminum.
Yeah.
So then it's kind of like a insert.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I put the aluminum, rivet it to the chute, and then rivet the bottom of the sole to the aluminum or whatever I did, glued it to, and I was good to go. I mean, that was
Okay, so basically, you all you did was add the piece of aluminum,
Yeah.
and then put the bottom of the shoe back on.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I got you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I had my bottom of the sole on there. Just had that big aluminum in there. So when I walked, my feet wouldn't move. I mean, it kept them still, just like the cast.
Somewhere at your house, you've got those. Oh my gosh, let's go. We gotta find them.
But I mean, back then, you wouldn't believe some of the stuff people did when they got
Oh,
hurt.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you probably do. You've heard the
Yeah,
stories.
yeah.
I mean, it's like Harry. When he broke his leg, he couldn't push the clutch, so they put a hand clutch in it. So he had a big old bar over, and he put it in gear and take off. And shoulders getting broke. I mean, just different era.